Welcome to the Happiness Contribution Show with me, your happy host, Rosaria Cirillo. On the show, we talk about the various roles happiness plays in our individual lives and in business, and about the benefits that being happy brings. And we share knowledge and practices about what contributes to our happiness. Join me and my guests on this happiness journey together and get involved by visiting our website at happinesscontribution.com. Welcome to the Happiness Contribution Show. I'm your host, Rosaria Cirillo, and I'm committed to bringing more happiness into the world one interaction at a time by empowering companies to achieve growth, productivity, and profits by increasing customers' and employees' retention, cultivating happiness. I'm a speaker, trainer, and corporate advisor at the intersections of customer experience and happiness, and I'm the author of Yellow Factor. In the previous episode, number 17, I spoke to Huda Dortland about the amazing practice of EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, which I personally used a lot in the past 3 months to process all of the stress and frustration that I've been experiencing during my husband's hospitalization. And in episode number 16, I shared more about this time, which was the hardest time to my life to date, including the key interactions that I had in this period with companies, brands, doctors, nurses, and or small local businesses, the processes or lack thereof which I noticed, and how each and every interaction contributed or not to my happiness and resilience during this period. I was already a strong believer about the fact that companies can and have the responsibility to design and deliver products, services, and experiences that are meaningful and life-enriching for customers, enabling and empowering their employees to make a difference in people's life. This is what I regularly evangelize in my keynotes and what I work on with my clients to make happen. And I also am a strong believer that each and every interaction that we have in our life can be meaningful and enriching and can be contributing to each other's happiness. And this is why today, in this episode, I want to share with you a keynote that I did for the European Customer Centricity Award held by Arket Global in September 2022. In this keynote, I share another vulnerable story about the last 6 months of my father and how the interactions with companies truly impacted that time. But I also share how that all triggered my vision of happiness-driven growth and HCX, human-centered and happiness contributing experiences, which I believe and I wish are the future of CX. And I share why happiness matters to us as individuals and to companies, and how we can embrace a version 5.0 of business where happiness is at the center of what we do, and profit, prosperity, and growth follow as a result for all of the stakeholders. And finally, I share how businesses can contribute to happiness for their customers, employees, and society overall, nurturing 9 types of yellow factors, which fit into the acronym happiness, and how they can use the 6 driven competencies and move through the 6 stages of growth. So in the episode, you'll find what are all the meanings of each of those words. Thanks to Arket for the permission to use this keynote in my podcast and help me spread the message even further. Arket Global helps to recognize organizations around the world who are already doing amazing things in customer and employee experience. If you would like to learn more about Arket, you can visit their website www.arketglobal.com. If I can be of any help or support for you and your company with my advisory, keynotes, sessions, or training programs, I would love to hear from you, so do get in touch. Now, enjoy this episode. I hope you find it inspiring, and I look forward to hearing your point of view. Until the next episode. Hello everyone, wonderful to be here with so many CX and EX professionals from around the world. A special thanks to Mark, Richard and Arket for having me here today. I'm honored to share with you my journey to cultivate more happiness in business and in life. My name is Rosaria Cirillo. I'm a certified customer experience and happiness trainer, advisor, speaker and author with a mission to bring more happiness into the world, one interaction at a time. I'm originally Italian and I've been living in the Netherlands for 20 years, since I came here in July 2002 for an internship at Forrester Research, writing my master thesis on customer experience when it was still considered experimental. Today, I'm talking to you from Zaandijk, just 10 minutes outside Amsterdam. And what you see behind me, it's Danseschans, a beautiful windmill village which most tourists visit. This village has a very special emotional value for me because it is the last place in which I've had some funny and worry-free moments with my father when he came to visit in May 2010. I was just a few weeks pregnant then. A few weeks later, in July, I learned I was expecting a son. My father learned he was having 40 metastases in his lungs. The prognosis for my father was 3 months left to live. I was only 4 months pregnant then. He wouldn't get to meet his first grandson, but at least I could spend some time with him. So I took a parental care leave, and in mid-August I left for Italy, wanting to spend every minute with my dad. But complications in his condition, which worsened very quickly, and in my pregnancy, forced me to return here already a month later. I bought him a laptop, set up Wi-Fi, taught him how to use Skype, and a day after his 63 years birthday, I left without knowing if I would ever see him again. The ability to communicate became our most cherished resource. Technology shortened the physical distance between us. We shared meals, prayed together, attended Mass, nearly connecting 24/7 via Skype. And when I gave birth, I also introduced my son to him via Skype. It took 21 days from healing from the C-section before I could fly to Italy, and against any prognosis, my father was still alive. We spent 4 days together, and then we flew back to the Netherlands. 2 days later, my father passed away, so we flew back to Italy for the funeral, stayed a few days with my mother, and then came back again. And the moment we arrived home, we discovered that our phone, internet, and television had been cut because of one missed payment across this month of going in out of hospitals and flying. And even after paying, it would still take 5 days in order to be reconnected. Imagine if this had happened before. Imagine how different those final months might have been without the internet. The ability to communicate helped my family to love, share, and grieve. But more importantly, it helped us to connect when we needed the most. It gave me more time with my father. It literally became his oxygen. It added life to his days, and I'm sure it also added days to his life. Do Skype, UPC, and any other company out there even realize that they are not just a software or a telco provider, but they are a tool to connect, a mean to enrich people's life and to contribute to everyone's happiness. I was already passionate about customer experience and happiness, and had been advocating and pursuing them both in my work. But the hardships during my father's last 6 months taught me how much we rely on companies for our lives, for healthcare, to travel, to stay connected, how much interaction with companies represent a key part of our life, and how much companies can contribute to our happiness, and how much the leaders in the company we work for influence us,
And finally, how much the people within the company can design and deliver products, processes, services, and experience that are meaningful and life-enriching for customers. As a customer experience believer and doer since 2002, in all my roles and projects, thanks to a focus on improving the customer experience end-to-end, we had achieved higher revenue, loyalty, word of mouth, and even lower cost, ultimately driving profits and business growth as a result. We were pursuing customer-driven growth. Yet, I felt that something was missing. My moment of truth took place in 2015 when I was following an additional customer experience course. And I learned that there are management approaches that suggest that we add or at least leave pain in the experience in order to maximize the pain-pleasure gap and therefore memorability. Pain, I wondered, intentionally created or left in the experience? Really? Why? Pain will most likely happen anyhow at some point in the experience. Because no matter how much we design, plan, and execute, hiccups will always happen. And there is already enough pain and struggle in our lives without needing extra pain by design. That made me start asking the question, in which world would I rather live in? One of happiness or one of pain? And I invite you to ask the same question. As I kept pondering on this question, I gained clarity on my own why. I became conscious why I had chosen the field of customer experience and I've been so passionate about it. I wanted to bring more happiness into the world, one interaction at a time. This is why I started to think about a new business model, happiness-driven growth. We are all on the same journey. Why not make it as extraordinary as possible as we can for each other? So in my 2016 TEDx, I shared this new life-enriching business model, and I shared that my dream is to live in a world which is human-centric, where business models see companies, employees, and customers as human beings with a common shared goal, a peaceful, sustainable, healthy, and happy life, and happiness contributing, where companies design and deliver meaningful and life-enriching products, services, and experiences for customers, enabling and empowering their employees to make a difference in people's lives. My definition of happiness is inspired by Gandhi's quote, that happiness is when what we think, what we say, and what we do are in harmony. To which I added, and what we feel and what we experience are in harmony. Have you ever found yourself looking forward to an experience only to be disappointed by the company delivery of that experience? While I strongly believe that happiness comes from within and that we can train our brain to think helpful thoughts and we can build our resilience, I also believe that companies have the ability and even the responsibility to create happiness too. And they can educate their employees more about how to nurture happiness. If we look at the evolution of the businesses, we see the following evolution or different management approaches or philosophy that companies have adopted over the past few decades. Business 1.0 put the stakeholders, the shareholders first, profit at the center. Business 2.0 said, no, customer comes first because business is about creating and keeping customers. And then Business 3.0 said, no, employees comes first because they create the value. Business 4.0 said, actually, purpose comes first. We should first define the why. To me, it sounds like the old millennial discussions about what is at the center of the heart of the solar system, the sun or the earth. And it also seems that we are letting the tyranny of "or" taking over, asking, is it this or is it that? In this case, we don't actually have to choose. We can embrace the power of "and." We can have happiness at the center and creating happiness for the customers, happiness for the employees in the organization, driving a business with purpose, and let profit and growth follow as a result, so that all the stakeholders gain out of it, including the shareholders. If we embrace the power of and, leading from our heart, we can blossom as individuals for ourselves, as mothers, daughters, fathers, or sons in our family, as professionals in our teams or companies, as leaders to our customers and society. This is why I believe that the future of CX is HCX, human-centric and happiness contributing experiences, and why most recently I've added to the model heart-centered, because being a conscious leader requires being connected with and leading from the heart. And why does happiness then matters? Happiness, it matters to us. If I ask you, what is it you most want for your children, you will likely answer happiness. If I ask you, what is it you most want in life, whatever your answer is, if I then ask you why enough times, your ultimate answer will be happiness. And happiness matters to business, and it's the new competitive advantage, because it drives sustainable, healthy growth, even in times of crisis, thanks to the impact on revenue and cost. Happy customers are the most profitable because they renew, they purchase, they are willing to pay a premium price, they forgive hiccup, they have lower cost to serve, and they even live longer and they are more successful, therefore buying more for longer, ultimately having a higher lifetime customer value. And happy employees have the highest return on investment because they're more productive, creative, innovative, they call in sick less, they have lower absenteeism, lower turnover, they buy your company's products and services, and they deliver the best service to customers because they're happy themselves. And both happy customers and happy employee, they advocate and praise you with positive word of mouth, and they provide valuable feedback for improvements. This is why happiness should be a driving factor in business. Already in 2017, I could see that there were already many innovative trailblazer companies which were already putting happiness at the center, showing us that we can combine passion, purpose, people, and profit to create and deliver more happiness into the world. They were designing and delivering experiences that truly enrich people's life and contribute to the happiness of the employees in the organizations and the customers outside. Zappos had made delivering happiness their mission, and profitability had followed. This is why, in 2017, I decided to start collecting in a systematic and structured way more examples of companies that were contributing to happiness. And that is when I partnered with Stan Phelps, who was already looking at ways that companies differentiate themselves by creating little goldfish, the little extra that differentiate them. He uses the metaphor of the goldfish because goldfish growth can vary from just few centimeters to half a meter, and that difference is determined by 5 growth factors. And just like the goldfish, also all the businesses do not grow equally, but they have the same 5 factors that impact their growth. What are those 5 factors? You have the size of the environment of the bowl, which is the equivalent of the market for business. You have the number of goldfish in the bowl or in the pond, which is the equivalent of the competition. You have the quality of the water, which is the economy. You have the first 120 days of the life of the goldfish, which is the startup phase for a company. And you have the genetic makeup, which for business represents differentiation. And differentiation is the only thing that businesses can control. So we set up to write yellow goldfish. Why yellow? Well, because yellow is the brightest and most cheerful and playful color in the spectrum. We associate it with happiness. We associate it with joy. Why? Because we associated it with the sun, and we need the sun to live. The sun gives us warmth, it gives us oxygen, it just helps us grow. And I love that Tal Ben-Shahar uses the metaphor of the sun to say that the sun is exactly like happiness. We need the sun to live, but we cannot look straight into the sun unless we want to get blinded. Similarly, we cannot pursue happiness directly, because if we do, we are just going to be unhappy. We need to pursue happiness indirectly by doing the things that actually contribute to our happiness. So what can we, as businesses, do in order to increase happiness indirectly? As a result of our 300 business case studies, and also leveraging insights from the Maslow hierarchy of needs, from Marshall Rosenberg theory of needs and strategy, and from my own analysis of thousands of comments from customer satisfaction and Net Promoter Score survey, we found that businesses can contribute to happiness for customers and employees and society by nurturing 9 types of yellow factors, which we summarized in the acronym happiness. H is for health, and it's about both physical and mental health, which are the basis for everything, as we saw in 2 years of pandemic. Then we have autonomy, which is feeling in control of our actions, of life and work, achieving balance and integration, having time and space. Purpose is about contributing to something bigger than ourselves and fostering a better world. The second P is for play, which allows us to discover, learn, and express ourselves fully. Integrity is about businesses being a force for good, not only creating high-quality product and being open and honest and transparent, but actually improving the world we live in. Nature is both experiencing and preserving nature and is about beauty, delight by design. Empathy is feeling accepted and connected with each other. Simplicity allows us to reduce mental and physical energy consumption required to achieve a result, and it allows us to spend time on what really matters. And finally, the last S, smile, is also it's about celebration, gratitude, acknowledgement, and appreciation. And so we introduced the sunflower of happiness to symbolize those 9 ways to blossom towards happiness. And today I'm going to give you a pin of happiness by sharing with you some examples from the factors play, integrity, and nature. First, play. Play matters in business because it fosters creativity, fun, and learning in the workplace, and because it engages customers thanks to the impact that it has on the release of neurochemicals of happiness. That is also why gamification works so well. So one example of play in business comes from Southwest Airlines, which we know as a leader in customer experience, but they are also known for their funny flight safety announcement, such as put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then place it on your child. If you're traveling with more than one child, then start from the child with the most earning potential. Or, if you should get to use the life vest in a real situation, the vest is yours to keep. Now, not only those announcements, they actually make the flight attendant's life more fun, but creating laughter among the passengers actually reduces flight anxiety and related stress and even sickness, because laughter and stress are biological opposites. Now, the Insight team went on to study the impact, and they found that in the company satisfaction survey, 1 out of 70 customers mentioned those safety announcements as the most memorable part of their flight. They also discovered that customers that were exposed to those safety announcements were traveling on average 1.5 times more than the customers who were not exposed to those announcements. So they calculated that by doubling the number of customers that were hearing those safety announcements, the company could actually earn an additional 140 million a year in incremental revenue because of loyalty stimulation. That is an impressive return on investment or return on a moment considering that it actually does not even require any financial investment. Then we have the I for integrity. And our lead example for integrity is actually Tony Chocoloni, a Dutch chocolate company that was started in 2005 and just within 13 years grew to be the biggest one in the Netherlands with a market share of 19%, higher than multinationals such as Nestlé, Mars or Verkade, and that since 2016 has been expanded in US and also in most of the European companies. The company was started by Teun van de Koken. He was actually a journalist that was busy doing some investigation when he discovered that actually in the cocoa industry, children's slavery is still being used. So what he did, he ate 12 chocolate bars of chocolates produced in this illegal way, and he gave himself to the police, asking to be arrested. When the trial did not result in conviction, he decided to take the matters in his own hand and founded Tony Chocoloni in order to change the game, to change the industry. And he was focused on providing slave-free chocolate, not only for Tony Chocoloni, but also trying to influence the entire industry and also trying to influence also the users by making them aware of such a thing by having, for example, unequally divided pieces of chocolate bar, which is the only one across the world to do this. And also, Tony Chocoloni is also a great example on the yellow factor like nature. So their toilets have a coca forest wallpaper when you enter in them. Play, you have incredibly bright color bar chocolate. Also, what they do, they have a lot of simplicity. Like, for example, they have created a just one-page employment contract. And finally, they also have yellow factor on their smile. Like, for example, their Quarantoni survival kit that they send to their employees when the pandemic starts. Or they also have this little jumpsuit that they give to any baby that is born from their employees. And they even have a special prize for anyone who names their baby Tony. They're going to get an extra €1,000 benefit. So you can imagine how many people have their children called Tony in their company. Finally, we have the N for nature. When we are in nature, we immediately feel a sense of happiness, fulfillment, joy, peace with ourselves and the universe. Because nature allows us to move from thinking to feeling. It allows us to perceive the reality through our 5 senses. Organization can recreate the same feelings, the same perceptions and benefits of nature by either delighting by design through beauty and harmony, or by promoting experience and preservation of nature. I will share an example of delight by design when we talk about the 6 stages of growth. What I want to share now with you is an example of promoting an experience and preservation of nature. And I have the example here from Albertijn. Albertijn is the main Dutch, one of the main Dutch retailers and supermarket. And what they have a loyalty campaign called the Moes Tuintje, the little vegetable garden, or also Bloemen Tuintje. And what they do is that for every €10 of purchase, they give you this little box. And basically what you have in here, you have this paper vase with soil in it and seeds that you can plant in your own house or in your own garden. And what this does, those little boxes, they really contribute to the happiness for children and parents that take this moment to do this together. It also teaches the kids how the seeds grow into plant, and it gives the joy of seeing that growth happen. And ultimately, especially this one which is about the flowers, it also contributes to having more bees and more butterfly into the environment. That's just a glimpse of the what and the type of examples that we have collected to inspire more companies to do the same and to realize that we can actually make a difference in people's life. We build the world we live in, and we can build a world that contributes to more happiness. Now let's look at the how you can create yellow goldfish. This is the driven growth part of the framework. The driven part, it's really about the core of CX as discipline. As Forrester already shared in Outside In, Leading companies routinely perform a set of standard practices and develop competencies in 6 disciplines: vision and strategy, customer understanding, design, measurement, organizational accountability, and culture. And these disciplines are the basis for the corresponding driven competencies that every leader needs to acquire and develop. Define your vision and strategy, but also your values and strengths. Research to gain understanding. Ideate to innovate and improve experience design. Validate through measurement, and nurture through culture. KPN is the main Dutch telco operator, and a few years ago they found out that most cancellations and calls were happening at a very critical moment in the life of customers, when there was a death of a family member. And the next of kin were calling the regular contact center in order to have a cancellation, and they were getting answers such as, is there any offer that we can do to actually keep you stay? So the CX team started by clearly defining the problem and its mismatch with their CX strategy. They then researched the customer situation, designed the journey, ideated a new process, validated it with the customers, and then executed the new process by creating a completely new contact center next of kin, empowered by special training on how to handle very emotional call, so charged with grief, and also enabled by a very special authority, the possibility to propose to the next of kin whether they wanted to receive the recording of the voicemail of the deceased, which in many cases was the only recording of the voice of the deceased that people would have. This was received very well, and it really made a difference into people's life, and it's what we call a yellow goldfish in the factor empathy. Finally, I would like to share with you one final example which is exemplificative of the 6 stages of growth and of the yellow factor nature, delight by design. In 2010, Dow Dietz, an engineer at General Electric's healthcare, had just completed his amazing new MRI machine for kids, and he decided to take time, the T in growth, to actually go to the hospital and see the reaction those kids would have to this amazing new piece of engineering. And when he was there, the first customer he saw was actually a little girl, and what he saw was no excitement. The little girl was actually incredibly scared, frightened. She was crying, and she was hanging on her parents, praying them not to let her go into the machine. That was for Doug his grounding moment, the moment in which for the first time he saw the reality from the eyes of the users. And he saw that in the eyes of those children, his amazing piece of engineering was actually, using his word, just a brick with a hole in it. So what did he do? He went back to his office and he decided to reach up the R. He went to Stanford School and he took a design thinking course, and then he went back to the drawing table with his team and to see how could they apply a human-centered designing approach in order to redesign not so much the product, but the experience around it. And there they had their wow blossoming. They created the adventure series, basically all different types of room, from Pirate Island to jungle to Wonderland, which were surrounding the MRI machine. And when this time he actually went to the hospital to see the reaction of the children, he finally saw something completely different. Not only the children were actually excited to go into the machine, but what he saw was that when the kids were actually coming out of the machine, they would turn towards their parent and say, "Mom, Dad, can we do this again tomorrow?" That was for Doug the moment in which he realized that he had changed the life of those kids and of their parents in a very impactful and meaningful way. And this human-centric, heart-centered, and happiness-contributing experience actually harvests the H in growth even more results. Not only happy kids and parents, but also 80% of the kids no longer required sedation, which they did before. That meant much less stress for the employees and for the medical staffs, but it also meant less expensive and time-consuming procedures because the anesthesiologists were no longer required. That meant lower cost and also more scans possible per day, which ultimately meant more life saved. And this is really what I call happiness-driven growth. And you can bring this approach into your life and organization as well. Creating meaningful and life-enriching experiences that are human-centric, heart-centered, and happiness-contributing requires leadership, commitment, and action from each of us in everything we do, in every role we play. Each of us can and needs to develop competencies that influence the way that we show up. The choices that we make as customers, friends, or colleagues can contribute to our and to others' happiness. And even when companies choose other ways than happiness to differentiate themselves, each of us can still do the little extra that seeds happiness, radiates sunlight, and contributes to a happier, healthier world. Using the sunflower analogy again, once sunflower blossom, they contribute to the happiness of anyone who looks at them. And their seeds take on a life of their own with dozens of possible different usage that can be done of those seeds. We can be the light for each other. We can all lead the way and be role model and increase overall light and energy by turning on our light. I have shared a lot with you today. So if you take 3 things from me from this time together, let them be the following 3 actions in 3 steps. Learn, be, and do. Learn about happiness and yourself, about the science of happiness and the factors that actually impact our happiness. Each of us has a yellow factor inward, our fuel, our happiness fuel, and outward, the way that we contribute to other people's happiness. What are your yellow factor inward and outward? And how do you use your yellow factor outward in your inner and in your outer circle? Be the light, be and seed the change that you wish to see in the world. You co-create the world we live in. Each of our words and action can have a great ripple effect. We have the choice and the power to contribute to a better world leading from the heart. And finally, do, practice, take action. How full is your pollen tank on each of the petals, and how can you recharge it? If you were to mobilize your company to pursue happiness-driven growth and HCX, what would be the first step you can take after this conference? Thank you for listening. I hope that what I shared with you today inspires you to action. If you have any questions on how to put this all in practice, please reach out. I have plenty of free resources, created a special page for you, wownow.eu/thankyou, as well as workshops, masterclasses available on request. I will be delighted to connect with each of you on LinkedIn, so please reach out. Let's bring together more happiness-driven growth and HCX in the world. Thank you.
This was the Happiness Contribution Show, available on YouTube as webcast and on your favorite channels as podcast. If you like the show, we would appreciate if you share it with one person that may benefit from it too. Subscribe to our channel and tune in for the next episode. You can find all the episodes and discover more happiness contribution tips on our website, happinesscontribution.com. That's all for today. Stay happy and healthy and nurture happiness contribution.